The Shroom and Doom update added a new ranged weapon to Grounded, the Crow Crossbow. At a quick glance, you might think it is now the best bow in the game. It has a higher damage per shot than the Sprig bow and insect bow, but is it actually the best bow? In this video, I'm going to compare the three bows to show you which bow I think is best right now. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, now's a great time to do so you don't miss any future videos. Let's get started. So as I mentioned in the intro, there's three bows in Grounded right now. We have the Sprig bow, the insect bow, and the Crow Crossbow. The Sprig bow is the tier 1 bow, the insect bow and the Crow Crossbow are tier 2 bows. The Crow Crossbow was added in the Shroom and Doom update, so it's the newest bow in the game. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at all three real quick. The Sprig bow is going to be the first bow that you unlock. It requires of the three, it's the easiest to craft as well. It only requires 3 Sprigs, 4 Nat Fuzz, and 2 Crude Rope. And it has the lowest damage of the three. It does 2 damage per shot. It cannot stun, and the speed for it is 3.5. So of the three bows, obviously it's a tier 1, and it's going to be pretty easy to see that once we look at the other two, that this is going to be the least useful. Although early in the game, a bow is actually really good, and you can farm most of the tougher insects by using a Sprig bow and basic arrows. Second up on our list is the insect bow. The insect bow is going to require you to kill some wolf spiders because it requires spider fangs. So it's 2 spider chunks, 2 spider fangs, and 2 silk rope. Once you've been playing the game for a while, you're probably going to end up having a ton of spider parts, so it'll be fairly easy to craft and also repair. To repair this only costs 2 web fiber. This does 4 damage. It has no stun capability, and it has the same speed of 3.5 as the Sprig bow. So basically, it's the Sprig bow times 2. It does double the damage per shot, has the same stun capability of 0, and it has the same speed. Next up is the newest bow in the game. It's the Crow Crossbow. The Crow Crossbow costs 6 crow feather pieces, 4 acorn shells, and 4 silk rope. Acorn shells and silk rope are fairly easy to get, as the acorns respawn, I believe, every day, and silk rope you just get from the web fiber. The crow feather piece is going to be the part of this equation that's probably going to be the toughest. Right now, until it gets buffed, the crow only I think it has a 25% chance of dropping something like 3 to 6 crow feather pieces when it leaves a perch. So if you see it like on top of the bird bath or one of the lasers or the pagoda in the pond, when it leaves that, there's a 25% chance that it will drop a feather piece somewhere I think it's either right below it or somewhere in the path that it's flying. So crow feather pieces are not that easy to get. I've seen some people say they can't find any of them. I haven't had a problem we were able to find them in pretty much any of the worlds we've created. However, there's no consistent way of finding them other than like just searching the entire map. And fortunately for us on the main world that we play on, we have zip lines that go across the center of the yard. So we'll periodically be going across those and just happen to see a crow feather in the middle of the grass that we would otherwise probably never see. So while we do have a decent amount of them, just building a few crow feather roof pieces just eats up the cost of making these. And I also believe it's required in, let's check real quick. It might be required in is it for the grinder too? Yeah, the grinder requires 2 of them. So it really quickly adds up how quickly you can burn through the crow feather pieces depending on how much you're building with them. But anyway, the stats for the Crow Crossbow are, it does 6 damage, so it does the most damage. It also has 2 stuns, so it can stun while the other 2 cannot. But you can see the speed here is 0.5, so it is the slowest. Now you might be saying, what does this mean? The Crow Crossbow, if you shot it, shoots very quickly. It will shoot arrows. The arrows shoot very quickly. The first arrow comes out almost immediately, while the other 2 bows you have to pull back the arrow and then release it. However, the difference is the reload speed on the Crow Crossbow is much slower than the insect bow. So what we'll do real quick is I've crafted each one of them. I'll just show you how quickly it takes. So here we go. That's the Sprig bow. Here's the insect bow. You're gonna notice it's got the exact same speed. And then the Crow Crossbow shoots instantly, but look how long it takes to reload. So that's where this comes into play, is that it takes much longer to get your second shot off for the Crow Crossbow. So what I did was I did some testing. I shot each of the bows a bunch of times and recorded how long it took, basically how fast they were shooting. And looking at these numbers here, I was kind of thinking that the Sprig bow and the insect bow, because they have a 3.5 speed and the Crow Crossbow only has a 0.5, that I should be able to shoot the arrows 7 times faster. That's not what it worked out to. What it actually worked out to was about 2 times. So what I did was I recorded how long it took to fire 10 shots with each of the 3 bows. And what I found was the Sprig bow took about 15 seconds to fire 10 shots. The insect bow took about 15 seconds, which is expected because to fire 10 shots because they have the same speed. The Crow Crossbow took about 27 seconds to shoot 10 shots. So it was almost 50% slower in terms of how quickly you get off the shots. So then I did some quick maths, and based on the damage they output, the 2 for the Sprig bow, the 4 for the insect bow, and the 6 for the Crow Crossbow, I calculated the DPS, which is the damage per second. And what it works out to is the Sprig bow has a damage per second of 1.33. The insect bow has a damage per second of 2.67. And the Crow Crossbow has a damage per second of 2.22. Now, this might surprise some of you because even me, before looking at these stats, I was kind of thinking the Crow Crossbow, because it was new and because it had such a high damage number, that it was just going to do the most damage. But based on the math and based on my testing, the insect bow actually is going to output more damage per second. Now, I also tested how many shots you can get for each one of them before you deplete your stamina. So with no stamina mutations at all, I was able to get 7 shots with each one of them. So each one of them appears to deplete the same amount of stamina. So that might, because the Crow Crossbow does a little bit more damage per shot. Well, it does 50% more damage per shot than the insect bow. The DPS number might be lessened a little bit. The gap might be lessened a little bit just because it'll end up the 7 shots with the Crow Crossbow it's going to take longer to do it, but they're going to do more damage than the 7 shots with the insect bow. So it's probably, I still think the insect bow overall is going to output slightly more damage. It's just not going to be that 2.67 versus 2.22. It's probably going to be a smaller gap because of the fact that you're going to deplete your stamina bar at the same rate. So you're going to have to wait for it to restore, which would negate some of the faster reload speed of the insect bow. But overall, I think the insect bow currently is going to outperform the Crow Crossbow. Now, 2 things worth mentioning for the Crow Crossbow is that, of course, it can stun. So it has a small chance of stunning. And actually, let's real quickly compare it to the hammers now look at the hammers do a ton. The insect hammer has a 10 stun and it doesn't stun on every hit. So to be completely honest, this 2 stun means it's probably going to stun infrequently. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to have that high of a stun chance. So it does have a chance of stunning, which could help you. But typically, if you're like me, when I'm fighting with one of the bows, I'm usually I try to get height advantage. So I try to stand on top of a plant or on top of a stone or on top of something I've built, maybe, or even like one of the roots of the tree, and just fire down on the insects so that they can't face. I'm not going to fight them face to face using a bow. I'd much rather use the mint mace or something other than a bow. So the stun capability is really not going to make that much of a difference to me. And then it also has a longer range. So from doing some testing, it appeared to shoot, I don't know what the exact distance was. I wasn't able to figure it out, but it definitely shoots much, much further. It might even be twice as far. That stat's not on here, so the distance it shoots is not listed, but just from some basic testing, the Crow Crossbow can shoot much further. Now, does that make much of a difference? In my opinion, it does not, because when you're shooting a bow, if you can't see the insect that you're shooting's health bar, how do you know it's even doing damage, or is it even doing damage? Because I've had situations where I couldn't see the insect's health bar and I'm shooting it repeatedly, and then I get over to it and it appeared the health bar was completely full. So while you don't want to fight an insect with the crow with any ranged weapon like face to face, you want to have some distance between you. You have to have a reasonable distance between you where you can see their health bar. And also, when you're shooting from like a height advantage, a lot of times they try to flee, so you're going to actually have to pursue them, which the Crow Crossbow might help a little bit for that. But overall, that extra distance, I don't think is really going to make up for the fact that overall it has a really slow it has a really slow time between shots, basically. So I kind of wonder if the devs are going to look at this and maybe they can tweak it. I'll probably share this with them just to let them know. I'm sure they made the stats, so they must be aware of the stats. But I was kind of expecting the Crow Crossbow to be the better of the two. Maybe it's supposed to be for different situations versus the insect bow, but overall I was expecting it to be the better of the two, especially since it's basically more expensive to craft, because the crow feather pieces, while you just find them, they're not exactly that easy to get. Maybe in the future when crow feather pieces are more readily available, or you can get more of them faster, then it will be a moot point, because right now you have to not only use 6 of them to craft a Crow Crossbow, you also have to use 1 of them to repair it every time it breaks. Whereas the insect bow only costs web fiber, and you can get so much web fiber you'll never run out of it by just running through the hedge lab every like 30 in-game days or so. You'll just get so much of it from all the little spiderlings and stuff that you'll just never run out basically if you don't want to. So what I'm kind of thinking is that the Crow Crossbow, if the speed was exactly the same as the Insect Bow or the Sprig Bow, where it was the 3.5 and it did the 6 damage, it would make sense because then it would have a higher DPS. The DPS would be about 4 if it had the same speed. Or alternatively, they could just increase the damage that it outputs, or maybe give it some kind of bonus effect or something like that. That, I don't know, maybe, I don't even know. Maybe it slows enemies or something, it could snare them or something. It has to have something, because right now, based off of my testing, I think until something changes with it, I'm just going to stick with the Insect Bow because it's easier to craft, and I can use my crow feather pieces for other things like building, because that's kind of what we've been focusing on while we're waiting for the rest of the story to be completed. That's going to do it for this video. As it stands now, I would recommend using the Insect Bow over the Crow Crossbow because it has a higher DPS and the repair cost is cheaper, considering crow feathers can be a pain to farm, and so many of them are needed for feathered roofs as well as a few other craftable items in the game. If you found the video helpful, make sure to smash the like button as it really helps my channel. If you want to support the channel even further, you can do so via channel memberships by clicking the join button below or by becoming a patron via the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.